Stephen Miller, a senior Trump official, goes after the CNN reporter after asking idiotic questions over Donald Trump's deportation order.
Does that mean that the administration is ignoring this order, and might you ignore future court orders that meet the criteria you laid out?
The President of the United States and his administration reserve all rights under the Constitution to conduct national security operations in defense of the United States. The Alien Enemies Act, which was passed into law by the founding generation of this country, men like John Adams, was written explicitly to give the President the authority to repel an alien invasion of the United States. That is not something that a district court judge has any authority whatsoever to interfere with, to enjoin, to restrict, or to restrain any way. You can read the law yourself. There's not one clause in that law that makes it subject to judicial review, let alone district court review.
So, Stephen, when you say that this person has no authority at all, this is how our system works. It starts with these judges and then continues up. At what point does it become, in your view, legal for the justice system to be looking at this and making a judgment? And I fail to see how there's any other way but to start with where we're starting here before you get to eventually the Supreme Court.
Well, so first of all, there's a term in law, justiciable. This is not justiciable. In other words, this is not subject to judicial remedy. When the president is exercising his Article II powers to defend the country against an invasion or to repel a foreign terrorist that is unlawfully in the country, he's exercising his core Article II powers as commander-in-chief.
Is Venezuela invading the U.S.?
This is a very important point. This is a Title 50 authority. It's a commander-in-chief authority. So just to ask you a simple question, you talk about how the system works. Does a district court judge have the right to direct or enjoin troop movements overseas? Yes or no?
Well, Stephen, my question,
well, no,
if you could answer my question first,
in other words,
is Venezuela invading our country in a way that would apply this way?
So I'll answer yours and you'll answer mine. Under the terms of the statute, Tren de Aragua is an alien enemy force that has come here as detailed at length in the proclamation at the direction of the Venezuelan government. The statute says that a president has the ability to repel an invasion or predatory incursion that is directed by a foreign
state
government.
or a government, right? Are they a state or a government?
This would be, yes, it is documented that TDA was sent by the Venezuelan government in the proclamation. And here's an even more important point. Under the Constitution, who makes that determination? A district court judge elected by no one, or the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy? The president and the president alone makes a decision of what triggers that determination.
So do you then think we are
statute.
actually at war with Venezuela, the nation state of Venezuela?
You're not hearing me and you're not understanding me. Read the statute. Alien Enemies Act, 1798. It says if a predatory incursion is perpetrated by a foreign government, so it lists three qualifying actions. It could be an act of war.
It does say in the very beginning there has to be a declared war against a nation or a state. That's what it says.
No, wrong. Look up the statute. It's on my account on social media.
That's actually where we found it
earlier.
earlier.
Yes, it says or a predatory incursion or an invasion. The statute delineates three criteria for triggering the Alien Enemies Act. One is an act of war, which, by the way, an invasion is an act of war, but put that aside. One is an invasion, which this is. One is a predatory incursion, which this is. So it actually meets all three statutory criteria. But with respect to this particular statute, the proclamation is utilizing the incursion and invasion language in the statute.
So,
but this is a very important
Stephen.
question, because no, hold on. It's a very important question. You said the way our system works is the President of the United States commands the armed forces of the country, commands the foreign policy of the country, and that's subject to district court review. That is fundamentally untrue.
I never said that, Stephen. I did not say.
That has never been true.
This was not a military operation.
A district court judge can no more enjoin the expulsion of foreign terrorists to foreign soil that he can direct the movement of Air Force One, that he can direct the movement of an aircraft carrier, that he can direct Marco Rubio to engage in diplomacy in a country or not.
Do you think the Supreme Court has any say over this or not? Like, does the Supreme Court of the United States have any say over the things that you were just outlining right here?
I believe what the Supreme Court will say is what I just said, which is that the president's conduct here is not subject to judicial
review.
review.
But you are acknowledging that they do, in fact, have a say here,
well,
even though you think they may agree with you.
What we are expecting is the Supreme Court to say what has always been the case, which is when the president is using his powers as commander-in-chief, those determinations are not subject to judicial review. In other words, the president's designation of Trinidad as a foreign terrorist organization and as an alien enemy are part of his inherent plenary authority.
Do you want to know how I know this woman right here is a political partisan hack? Because deep down, she does not give a dang about the judicial authority, Trump's overstepping his bounds, this, that, or the other. She only cares about stopping Donald Trump and his mission for America. I can almost guarantee if the roles were reversed and Joe Biden was doing this and Republicans were fighting back about it, this woman would be sitting there on national TV saying that Joe Biden is well within his rights. The only reason she is so adamant is because she has such blind hatred towards Donald Trump. What person in their right mind wants their country flooded with immigrants who you don't even know who they are, without proper checks, without proper vets, when there are known gang members entering this country committing heinous acts towards American citizens? What person in their right mind thinks that's okay? Donald Trump right now is the president of the United States. He has been elected by 77 million Americans all across the nation. We elected him because we want him to follow through on his campaign promises to secure the border and to get rid of all the illegal migrants in this country. In fact, that was one of the main things that he ran his campaign on. This woman saying some local judge has the authority to supersede the president of the United States. Give me a freaking break. We have had an invasion in this country the last 4 years. Millions of undocumented people came in this country. If we want to have a safe and prosperous country, that cannot happen. So the first step in putting us back on the right track is to get rid of all these people. And if they want to come in, they can come in the right way.
How are you going to expel? Hold on. How are you going to expel illegal alien invaders from our country who are raping little girls, who are murdering little girls, if each and every deportation has to be adjudicated in a district court judge? That means you have no country. It means you have no sovereignty. It means you have no future. It is fundamentally incompatible to have a country and have individual expulsions adjudicated by a single district court judge.
I'm just trying to figure out at what point in the system do you, because what does the Trump administration believe? Because we do have separation of powers in this country. I hear what you're saying.
Yes,
you're saying the
separation of
district
powers.
court does
This
not
is the
have
judiciary
authority.
interfering
Stephen,
in
let me finish.
the executive function.
Let me
That
finish.
is the separation of powers. That is the separation of powers.
Did you ignore the judge's order here because you thought you could?
So the judge's order and the actions taken by the Departments of Defense, Justice, and Homeland Security are not in conflict. And the Department of Justice has been clear that they are not in conflict. But
so you think that you did go along with the order that the judge put out? You do not think that the Trump administration defied this order?
As the Justice Department said, there is no conflict between the judge's order and the actions taken by the departments I just listed. But I'm making a deeper and more fundamental point.
Yeah.
The district
court
if you
don't
has
have
no
to follow
ability.
It, why didn't you?
The district court has no ability to in any way restrain the president's authorities under the Alien Enemies Act or his ability to conduct the foreign affairs of the United States. Let me paint a picture for you. President Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio had engaged in intensive diplomacy to obtain a bilateral security agreement with the nation of El Salvador. If a district court judge can enjoin that bilateral security agreement, then we do not have a democracy.
Stephen, you've made your argument.
We do not have a foreign policy.
We've heard you say this. Did you ignore, did the administration ignore the order from the district judge? It's a simple question.
I've answered it. I've answered it because the Department of Justice has made a filing in the court. But let me make another point. The judge, in this case, put the lives of every single person on those aircraft at risk. Did he know how much fuel was in those planes? Did he know the flight conditions? Did he know the weather conditions? Did he know how many crew hours? Did he know the need for crew rest? Did he know any of that? No. This judge violated the law. He violated the Constitution.
So
he defied the system of government that we have in this country.
Because that does seem to be what you're arguing here.
These same district court judges didn't do a damn thing to stop Joe Biden from flooding this nation with millions of illegal aliens. These district court judges didn't issue any injunctions to save the lives of Jocelyn Hungary or Laken Riley or anyone else.
The federal courts. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that what you said, there's a separation of powers. The The judiciary
I just-
exercises
Stephen,
judgment and relief.
I don't speak for the White House. You are here to speak
I will
for
do.
You're here to speak for the
Then
White House.
then I will
I
wa-
just
I
want
will
you to
walk
answer
through
that
it.
one simple question.
I
okay?
am. Ready? Here we go. Under a proper reading of the Constitution, district court judges provide relief to individual plaintiffs seeking relief. District court judges do not have the authority, as a general matter, to enjoin the functioning of the executive branch, but their authority is at its lowest point when the president is exercising his powers as commander-in-chief. And I asked you a question, you never answered it. Can a judge enjoin troop movements overseas? Can a district court judge enjoin troop movements overseas?
Stephen,
yes or no?
I am not going to get into the
Just say no,
this,
and then you'll know that I'm right.
This is a
Just
separate
say no,
question,
and you'll know that
Stephen.
I'm right.
Okay, we're not
No,
talking
it's
about
not.
other
Because
troops
it's the
overseas.
president.
I need to ask you about
It's
something
not.
else
The
that's
president
important.
issued a proclamation delineating in detail how the Venezuelan regime sent this gang, this terrorist organization, to our shores. And by the way, and I love being here, but all the outrage that we are seeing from the Democrat Party and from the corporate media, none of that outrage was expressed when little Jocelyn Nungare was tortured and beaten to death. None of that outrage was expressed when our nation was flooded by illegal aliens.
I have just been simply trying to get a simple answer to a simple question. No
and I'm
outrage
glad for the
necessary
opportunity,
about whether or not the White House is ahead of the
But I
courts.
am.
But
Okay,
I need to ask you one more question. I'm going to have to let you go.
Democrats defending Trinidad instead of celebrating President Trump expelling these terrorists from our midst. And I'm glad for the opportunity to explain how the separation of powers does work. If the president has to litigate every national security action with 700 district court judges, then we don't have a functioning democracy.
Let me ask you one other question about the president's power today. It's on a slightly different topic, but we saw President Trump's comments about the use of the Autopen, the pardons that President Biden signed. And I just want to know from you, has President Trump ever used an Autopen to sign official documents, either in his first term or since he took office a second time?
Well, I've seen President Trump hand sign every executive order my whole time, and every part.
Have you ever seen him use an Autopen?
But President Trump signs every single critical government function document. But here's the more important point about that, even more important. The more important point is that President Trump personally directs every single federal government policy.
Right, but has he ever signed anything with an Autopen?
To my knowledge, every single executive order, every single proclamation, every single major government action, every single thing that affects the lives, safety, and livelihoods of the American people that comes out of the executive office of the president, he has signed. But more importantly, he has directed, he has briefed, he has been involved in. And this is the most important point. It's not just that Joe Biden used the Autopen. It's that he didn't know it. He was not briefed on it. He was not aware of it. He did not approve it. He was not mentally aware of what the government was doing.
If we're talking about the legality of something signed with an Autopen or not, I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything President Trump signed.
The key point is that you're missing it.
Stephen, I'm so sorry we're running out of time here. I do appreciate how much time you have spent with me, though.
Biden didn't know what was being signed in his name.
This is such a freaking farce. She knows it has nothing to do with the Autopen. This has all to do with Joe Biden was not actually the one calling the shots of Washington, D.C. the past 4 years. That is what the big controversy is. The Autopen is just a small bit of that. If you knew exactly what each bill and each executive order was and then you used an Autopen for that, that's okay. But the sheer fact of the matter is, Joe Biden did not have a clue what the heck was in front of him. This man should have been in a retirement home if his family had any decency, rather than being a puppet for the deep state, because I think we all know he was not the one calling the shots. In fact, almost all of his pardons were signed by an Autopen. I don't think that's allowed, so it's going to become a very constitutional crisis whether or not these pardons are even valid. It's so funny, though, how she tries throwing it back at Trump. Oh, has Trump ever used an Autopen? Do you think that Trump has no idea what's going on? Trump knows every minute detail that's happening in the Oval Office. He has the strongest cabinet in America's history. He knows everything that's going on. And in fact, this is probably the most transparent White House in American history. He's constantly going on the news. He's constantly live streaming him signing executive orders in front of big crowds even sometimes. How can you possibly, in good conscience, even insinuate that Donald Trump doesn't know what's going on? He's just using an Autopen. The Democratic Party, for the most part, have no mission, they have no agenda for America other than to destabilize it and cripple us as much as they can. Because if you turn on a Democratic network like CNN or MSNBC, you're only going to see stuff about Trump, negative Trump stuff. How about we work together and actually try and improve Americans' life rather than just constantly trying to demean and make the president look bad and everyone who associates themselves with the president? It's this type of divisive rhetoric that is fracturing our country. Look at what's happening to anyone who owns a Tesla vehicle. These lunatics on the left are doing whatever it takes to try and damage Elon Musk just because he's close to Donald Trump. These people need serious psychiatric help. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you think that Donald Trump has the authority to do what he's doing now? And also, if Donald Trump is ultra successful and brings prosperity to all Americans in this term, do you think that CNN and MSNBC will start giving him a fairer shot? Or do you think they are forever gone and they will never say anything positive about that man? Let me know. I'd love to know your opinions. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.